We have 2 minutes. Fun though. It's exciting to do that. We have 1 minute. The clock shows 9:30.
Good morning, everyone. We will call the meeting of the Western Water Board of Directors to order. Tammy, would you please do a roll call?
Thank you. Good morning. Director Torres.
Good morning. Here.
Thank you. Director Dinstedt. Director Roten.
Here.
Director Rizvi.
Good morning. I'm here.
Good morning. President Gardner.
I am here.
Thank you. President Gardner, you do have a quorum today.
Great, thank you very much. Just to let people know, Director Denstedt is not feeling well today, and so as not to expose any of us to whatever it is she has, she is not physically participating, but she is watching online, so she will know what it is that goes on during the course of the day. With that, it brings us to the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led this morning by Michael Mauser, our Information Systems Deputy Director. Mr. Mauser.
What's he supposed to say?
He's going to tell us how long he's been here and.
What he wants for Christmas.
Good morning, President Gardner, members of the board. My name is Michael Mauser, and I am the Deputy Director of Information Services, and I have been at Western right at, next week, it will be 7.5 years.
Great. We are glad to have you.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you for keeping our systems operating. Okay, Tammy, do we have any public comments?
President Gardner, we do have public comments today. I did receive 2 written public comments from Mr. John Farnsworth. Those will be provided to the board. They related to our public portal, and I have Mr. Farnsworth in the audience who has requested to speak today.
Okay.
Mr. Farnsworth?
Morning, Mr. Farnsworth.
Good morning. My name is John Farnsworth. As Tammy mentioned, I did raise a question several weeks ago about your public portal and how it was not usable for those outside of WMWD. I did have a meeting with Mr. Barr, Kevin, and Ms. Torres earlier in the week. Tim walked me through how that works. Still a little bit clunky if you're not quite in the know. And part of it has to do with the fact that you're using off-the-shelf software from other companies. You have to know what it is you're really trying to do in order to get a comment addressed to Tammy and so forth. So some progress, still a little bit clunky. I also requested, and we had a meeting with Tim as well regarding the history of WMWD water sources. That went with a couple of colleagues of mine that came in, and they had some questions about that. I think the meeting was very well prepared. We appreciated the information. It was useful to try to understand how our rates are so much higher than the city of Riverside's and the city of Marietta's in the Eastern District. So I'm looking forward with a further follow-on meeting with Tim and the team on early in January to talk about the financial aspects of how and why and where underruns should be put to use, maybe back to the public in some way and not just back into the funds that are respent the next year. I also like to use this time of year to come before you again and tell you all, I just got my December bill. Good news, I stayed within the tier 1, $10 for water, $50 for everything else. I think your rate structure really needs to encourage people to save water. If I don't save water, my bill's about the same. If I do save water, it doesn't change that much. So that rate structure where it's water is separate from everything else just puts the burden on all of the other types of costs that are in there that doesn't encourage saving, quite honestly. So $10 of water out of a $50 everything else, salaries, operations, maintenance, and so forth. Thank you.
Thank you. Tammy, did we have any other comments?
We do not.
Okay, thank you. Brings us to the consent calendar. We have 4 items. Would anybody like to pull an item for discussion? If not, is there a motion for approval?
Move to approve. I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Tammy, would you please do a roll call vote?
Director Torres?
Yes.
Director Roten?
Yes.
Director Rizvi?
Yes.
President Gardner?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries 4-0.
Thank you. Do we have anything to add to the agenda, Mr. Miller?
Nothing to add today.
Okay, thank you. Our action agenda, first item is approved funding for purchase order with Donald L. Herringer in support of the Western San Bernardino Water Master activities. Mr. Miller.
Well, Mr. Barr's moved down to the podium. This must be an important presentation. And I see Mr. Harriger is here also. So, Tim?
Good morning, directors. This item was discussed at the December 4th Engineering Operations Water Resources Committee of the board. It was important to the committee that Mr. Harriger be introduced and come to the meeting. So, first of all, this item is staff is seeking knowledgeable support for the Western San Bernardino development of various documentation that needs to be done in the future. I am pleased to introduce Mr. Don Harriger. Mr. Harriger was a Water Master Committee member from 1975 until 2000 and roughly 4 is what's in there, but he continued to sign the agreements as we transitioned to a new general manager at that time. Mr. Harriger was general manager here at Western Municipal Water District from 1989 through his retirement in December of 2003. He has authored numerous Water Master documents and continues to help staff understand the judgment, interpret the judgment as new issues pop up, and they do. The judgment is, as is written in the staff report, the judgment is more than 50 years old. It is a document that is both rigid in the sense that it protects the rights of the plaintiffs within Western. It is designed to protect the basin itself, San Bernardino, Riverside Colton, and the Riverside North Basin. However, there are provisions in the judgment that allow some flexibility. It's this flexibility that we seek to work out our differences and opportunities with all of the parties. There's a provision in the judgment that allows for the capture of new conservation water, new water that is made available through actions taken by the parties to develop things like recharge basins, do studies that enhance the water rights in the area. The way that we capture that is that we develop agreements between the agencies that modify some provisions of the judgment. And we're about to do that again. New conservation was first calculated and determined by Watermaster in 2013. It is required that it be recalculated and redetermined by Watermaster no greater than 10 years later. Here we are 10 years later, and none of the staff here at the district have done this calculation. Well, thankfully, Mr. Harriger is here with us and is prepared to teach staff how to do it, how it was done in the past, and help us through that. So the request is that we amend the operating budget by $180,000 and authorize the general manager to execute a contract with Mr. Harriger to help us get through this transition with new conservation, as well as develop an agreement that handles the extractions of water put in storage through SARCUP. So with that, I'm here to take any questions. I'd ask Dawn to come to the podium if you have any questions of Mr. Harriger.
Great, thank you very much. Does anyone have questions of Mr. Harriger?
I do. Hi, Mr. Harriger, and thank you for being willing to help us out with this task. I'm just curious about what the only thing that I don't see, I don't have the contract here in this package. What would the $180,000 go towards, and is that just a salary, your time, what tools, what is it, what would it consist of?
The 180,000, that's a figure that Tim came up with. I just show up every morning and I do what Tim tells me to do.
Okay, Tim.
So
I guess that's a question.
perhaps, Tim, you can relate to how you came up with that figure.
So it is basically the salary for Mr. Harriger. It's a consulting agreement. It comes out to be 900 hours, $200 an hour, which covers all of the costs. Mr. Harriger is tasked with developing multiple agreements between, for the judgment, multiple agreements between Western and San Bernardino Valley Municipal Water District, and potential agreements between Western and all 4 of the plaintiff parties with water rights. So there's a number of agreements and a number of writings that need to occur, as well as a number of meetings with staff that need to occur as well in the next 12 to 18 months.
Okay, thank you. And just to follow up on that question, so 900 hours is roughly full-time for half a year, or half part-time for a year, which do you perceive will happen?
Don's retired, so Don works banker's hours. So he's not here 5 days a week. And this is 12 to 18 months worth of work, so it is part-time.
Okay.
I try to work when I don't have medical appointments.
Of course. Well, thank you. Again, thank you for your time.
Other questions? Mr. Miller?
No question. If the board's done with questions, I just want to make a comment.
I did have one
Go ahead.
clarifying question. The cost is a not-to-exceed cost, I assume, not a flat fee? Okay.
And
So the hours invested may or may not total that total amount.
And in conversations with Mr. Harriger said, I don't know that I need that many hours, but we don't know where this is going to take us, and the agreements could take
Yeah.
longer to write.
And we're all protected if it's a not-to-exceed number.
Yes,
So,
it is.
Great, thank you. Mr. Miller?
Yeah, I would just, I want to thank Don for hanging around with us at Western over the years, because Don is the foremost expert on the judgment out of all of the parties. And so he has really provided us great leadership and education. And these things come up throughout the year that we need advice on. And it's very much like legal advice. So it's very similar to a legal contract. These items are extremely complicated. Don does a great job of convincing the other water master and their representatives that it is legal to do under the water master some of these creative programs like SARCUP or new conservation. And so I really appreciate the fact that he's still willing to come in and educate. And we certainly recognize the importance of succession planning. And so Don, I don't know what we would call it. He ran College for Young Water Resources Planners here at the agency for years. They had a Friday class, and our water resources team would go through it. And I think Mallory may be the latest graduate from the Harriger Institute, which includes homework and tests as they go on Fridays. And so it's very complicated, and we need to make sure that knowledge is recorded and we're able to implement it and do it correctly, because we don't want to be in court. And we are the arm of the court. And so this stuff is complicated. And so I really appreciate the fact that he's willing to do this. So thank you very much, Don, for all you've done for us.
Craig, just to follow up on that, for this specific task, will there be somebody designated to learn from Mr. Harriger? For 10 years from now, we have somebody in-house that will be able to do this?
Well, we're building the expertise. And so Tim, Ryan, Mallory, Carly Gaynor, also, they all went through it. So we're always trying to build for the future, because I'm not going to be here all the time, and Tim's not going to be here Mallory's going to be here forever.
Oh, good.
We're committed to that. But it is an ongoing concern. And I think you see that at some of the other agencies where they don't have this longevity, and then they got to go and relearn it. And actually, in reality, the Valley staff is very appreciative of Don's work, because, they're the other water master that potentially would be adverse to us in some of these issues, but they'll work with us so that Don can actually explain it to them, so they're comfortable that it's legal and within the intent of the judgment.
Okay, thank you.
Mallory is, although I'm presenting this, Mallory is, for all intents and purposes, the lead for the Water Master Work Group. And she is in the meetings with Don on a regular basis and continues to learn. So she is our future.
So she'll know the calculations at that
No
point?
pressure.
Tim's probably wondering why I brought this. You recognize this?
Yes, I have one in my office, thanks to you.
I brought this along because when I first came to Southern California in 1970, I went to work for the SAPA organization, not the SAPA that you know, but the Santa Ana Watershed Planning Agency, which is a joint powers authority that was formed prior to the settlement. And it was formed for the purpose of addressing the water quality issues, which the various parties in the watershed could not come to agreement to prior to 1969. So I was hired along with another person from DWR out of the Delta branch in Sacramento to come down. And I remember well my first day on the job, 10 months after the judgment had been signed, and the manager, I was the assistant manager, he was the manager, I come into my office and he handed me this book. And these are the settlement papers. I've kept it because this is an original printing. This is original printing. You can see it's all yellow, it's all marked up. I gave up using it about 10 years ago because it started falling apart. But I will tell you that there isn't a day goes by here at the district as I work for you folks that I don't reference this document. It is essentially the Constitution, if you will, for the river. And as Craig said, there are parts of it that are quite difficult. And it's largely because, and what I find when I work with your staff and other people, is that they have difficulty understanding the settlement, largely because the settlement is a series of solutions to problems without a statement of the problem. I give people an example. Mallory's probably heard this before. I'll give you an answer, and it won't mean a thing. I'll tell you the answer is 764. The problem is you don't know what the question was. You don't know what the issue was. You've got the answer. And that's what happens to people when they read this. As the framers sat and worked through the issues, they were writing solutions. And there isn't great documentation with respect to what the problems were. And so what I do when I work with your people is try to share with them what I learned from people 50 years ago who were intimately involved in actually drafting this and resolving the issues, what I learned from them about what the problem was that is solved in here, and then suddenly it makes sense for them. So I brought this along just to show you that I still had it.
Will there be a test later?
Yeah. I would also, I'd also add that, you know, there's a couple different ways that we could address this need that we have, and we could go to our attorneys. And I think we spent hours yesterday, right, with two of our BBK attorneys with Don, you know, getting them more in-depth knowledge about the judgment. So I think we're really fortunate to have Don here because, don't tell him this, Tim, but, you know, we would pay a lot more for a group of lawyers to be doing this, and it's going to take them years and years and years to get up to speed on what Don just brings to the table for a meeting. And so it's a really valuable resource that we lean on as a crutch. And we are working really hard to pass that knowledge on because we do have to be able to do this on our own in the future. But part of it is also investing in the knowledge at BB&K. So Andre and Holland were both there yesterday, and Andre does a great job on all of our water master issues and our environmental issues. But you know, he's involved in a lot of other cases. He doesn't get to bury his whole life in this water master. And as you can tell, Don has spent a good portion of his life paying attention to this very closely. So it's a huge asset for Western.
Greg, it's interesting that you would mention BBK because, again, when I first came to the watershed, one of the first people I met was Art Littleworth from BBK. He had been very successful in the prior case, which is the Four Cities case, and he won that case. And that case resulted in the city of Riverside having today twice the amount of water they otherwise would have. But I had to learned a great deal and was very fortunate and being able to work with Art for over 50 years. I worked with Art up to within 2 years of the time he passed away, which was just 2 years ago. Art lived to be 98 years old, and he and I worked, like I say, until just 2 years ago. I would go to his home. I would go to there with a memorandum of an issue that the district had, and I would seek a legal opinion from him based on the technical information that I would provide to him. And we have a binder now of all of his work, most of which has been created since he retired, and he continued to work for you folks out of his home in support of me and the district. And my thanks to BBK for all the hard work that the firm has done over the last, well, since the district was formed, frankly. But I can vouch for the last 53 years.
Great. Thank you. Laura?
So I'm curious because one of the first terms or words I ever heard here was the 69 judgment. Everybody refers to the 69 judgment. And I serve as the alternate to Chino Basin Water Master. And so I attend a lot of those meetings so that I can learn and get up to date on the history and that kind of thing. The document that you're holding, is that the full 69 judgment or only the part that pertains to the Western Water Master part?
I refer to this as a document that contains all of what I call the settlement papers.
Okay.
And within the document, there are two judgments. There's a judgment with respect to the solution to Western's complaint. Western filed a complaint against producers in the San Bernardino area in order to stop prescription in 1963. Orange County Water District filed another complaint at about the same time, just a few months later, against all users above Prado in an effort to establish water rights above Prado. So in the document are those two judgments and then all of the supporting agreements that each of the parties entered into in order to implement. What the parties agreed to early on was, because there's so many lawsuits, many settlements failed prior to getting to this one. Most settlements on the river only lasted 4 to 5 years, and there would be another complaint. So they'd be over and over and over, starting with the Irvine suit, the Four Cities suit, numerous suits. So the other documents that are in there, and there's tabs for them, are supported. For example, Western has an agreement with the city of Riverside in an effort to support and demonstrate to the Orange County folks that it had the wherewithal to make the deliveries that it's committed to make at Prado. It had to enter into an agreement with the city of Riverside that the city of Riverside would continue to discharge wastewater to the river and meet a certain portion of that obligation, 15,250 acre feet a year. So there's all kinds of supporting documents in here. There's also an agreement between this district and the Chino district. You know it as Inland Empire. But we have a joint obligation at Orange County, at Prado. And each of us, so to speak, Western and Chino, have to provide certain amounts of wastewater. And there's actually a third water master associated with that effort to make sure that there's equal participation between the two districts in meeting the obligation of Prado. So it's just full of agreements and two judgments.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Other questions? If not, is there a motion?
Move to approve.
For the
I'm
motion
sorry,
and a
I'll second.
Any discussion? Any public comment?
We have none.
Okay. Would you please do a roll call vote?
Director Torres?
Yes.
Director Roten?
Yes.
Director Rizvi?
Yes.
President Gardner?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries 4-0.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Welcome back. And welcome to the new building. Our next item is to approve an agreement with Inland Empire Utilities Agency to facilitate a water purchase by Western. And Mr. Miller.
Yeah, Ryan is on Zoom, and Ryan will do the presentation for us, but this is following through on two important issues for us. It is furthering our dry year yield storage programs to prepare us for the next dry period, and it is also working with our other member agencies to figure out ways to collaborate to do such. So, Ryan, go ahead.
Yep. Thank you, Craig. Apologies to the board for not being there in person. Had some family matters to attend to. Pretty straightforward item. It's an agreement with IUA to purchase 3,600 acre feet of water that has already been stored in the Chino Basin. At cost, so thanks to IUA and their team for willing to sell it to us, Western, at cost. There's, we would like to, next steps, we would like to move this water from Cucamonga Valley Water District, sorry, should have said this up front. Right now, it's stored in Cucamonga's, storage account. We would like to move it over to Harupa's storage account, and they are open to that. So it doesn't seem like a problem, but for today's purposes, we're just looking to purchase 3,600 acre feet from IUA of existing stored water in Cucamonga's account, which again, hopefully will go over to Harupa, giving us direct access to it.
Okay. Questions for Ryan?
No, and I would just add that this is staff following through on board's authority to find $20 million worth of water. And so we're doing that. And, you know, the good news on this is we worked a really beneficial deal with IUA. I think it's beneficial for both parties. And, you know, the less expensive that we can get water for, the more acre feet of water we get for the $20 million. So
Don't
this is a
feel
good deal.
obligated.
And I think Josh Aguilar is at IUA speaking to their board about the same item right
Great.
now.
Yeah, don't feel obligated to spend the whole 20 million on this 3,600 acre feet.
No.
It's 2 million, right?
Yes.
2.6 million,
Yeah.
okay. All right. Move to approve.
Question, go ahead.
Just a clarifying question, I think this is a wonderful opportunity. It talks about, and Ryan, you mentioned that it sounds like the preferred storage place will be within our Hooper Community Services District storage account agreement, a future agreement to do that. I noticed it also in the staff report, says it could also possibly be stored in a Western Water groundwater account or another partner agency account. So if it were to go into a Western Water groundwater account, is that outside of the Chino Basin?
Ryan, do you want to?
No, yeah, sorry, Craig. Yeah, I'll take a crack at it. Really good question, Director. Western would love to have storage accounts in the Chino Basin. Currently, the way that Judgment is set up, we don't have access to our own storage, which is why we're kind of doing this Cucamonga, Jurupa, storage thing. But we are going to push for our own storage account through the next negotiation of the peace agreements, which is
Okay.
going to come up in the next year and a half. So, yeah.
Great, thank you. That's
And
it.
Just to confuse that a little bit, Chino Basin Water Master is doing a master plan for the storage accounts, and they would like to complete that before they open new ones. So that's one of the things that is holding it up. So hopefully that all gets resolved here in the next couple of years. And Western would like to have a storage and retrieval account, and it makes sense for us to have it. So hopefully we'll get it. Okay, other questions for Ryan?
There's a motion on the floor.
We do have a motion,
I'll second.
and we have a second. Any discussion? If not, Tammy, would you please take a roll call vote?
Director Torres?
Yes.
Director Roten?
Yes.
Director Rizvi?
Yes.
President Gardner?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries 4-0.
Thank you. Our next item is to award a construction contract for Mills Gravity Line Isolation Valve Replacement Project. And Mr. Miller, it says it's you
No,
again.
Derek's here. Derek will explain what we're up to. Derek?
Good morning, directors. I'm presenting to you the Mills Gravity Line Isolation Valve Replacement Project. This is necessitated by the failure of that valve, which is a crucial isolation valve. It's near Choi Drive. We have a series of valves that go down the Mills Gravity Line. We use them in the event of a failure or a leak so that we can isolate a portion of the line and not have to drain the entire line. So this malfunction significantly impacts our ability to react and repair leaks on the Mills Gravity Line. We plan on performing the work with a hybrid of operations staff and a contractor. We have already purchased the valve. The thing is that we need a large crane and the ability to reach the valve, which is very deep. It's about 24 feet deep. And the project was advertised on November 2nd, 2023, with an engineer's estimate of $205,800. 2 bids were received by December 5th, and G&A Nellos Construction submitted the lowest responsive and responsible bid, and that bid was $190,000. So the project budget is $699,000, including the $190,000 for the construction contract, $60,640 for the pre-purchased valve. It's a 48-inch diameter valve, and $19,000 for biological construction support from Helix. A little bit more on that later, and $32,000 for inspections, $15,000 for project management, $25,000 for Western operations support. And we have a contingency of 15% in this particular project because we want to make sure that if we have any problems, we can react to them quickly because we have a very tight window of construction. The urgency of the project is heightened by the environmental considerations, specifically the need to protect an endangered species, the Lis valsburio. Nesting season is limiting our construction window. The project schedule is carefully planned with the construction slated to start in February of 2024, and we're expected to complete it in 7 days. So the request is twofold. One, to approve a new capital project budget in the amount of $699,000 for the Mills Gravity Line Isolation Valve Replacement Project under the Mills Gravity Line Major Maintenance Fund 407. And two, to award a construction contract to G&A Nellos Construction of Lake Elsinore, California, in the amount of $190,000 for the project. We do have in the room Nassar Azmati. He's with G&A Nellos Construction, and I would invite Nassar, would you like to say a few words?
Hello. Yeah, so we're the contractor that's gonna perform the job, and I mean, we're well equipped with the resources and the staff. Do we have any questions I can answer?
Well, I will ask you Director Denstedt's standard questions because she's not here. Did you
Okay.
have any issues with the bid document? Are you confident that you can complete the job as you understand it, as it exists today, for the bid price, without having to go back and do, change orders or contract amendments?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you very much.
thank you.
You're welcome, Director Denstedt.
I now invite
Anybody
any
else have questions, comments?
Move to approve.
I have a motion.
I'll second.
We have a second. Tammy, would you please do a roll call?
Director Torres?
Yes.
Director Roten?
Yes.
Director Rizvi?
Yes.
President Gardner?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries 4-0.
Great. Thank you very much. Congratulations. We look forward to getting this done.
Thank you, directors.
And our next item, I'm pretty sure it's going to be Derek again, is to approve an increase in the budget of the Mockingbird Canyon Recycled Water Pipeline Emergency Repair Project. And we're about to close that out too, I think, aren't we?
That is correct. Not at this particular board meeting.
No.
But in the next board meeting that we have available, I will close it out. We actually checked in this morning and got confirmation that everything is done. We're going to do our final inspections, and so we're very happy to have that project behind us. To remind everyone, the Mockingbird Canyon Recycled Water Pipeline Emergency Repair Project, it was very important to us because that's our major line that carries recycled water across the district. It goes all the way from El Sobrante all the way to the plant that's over at Wharf, and that's how we get recycled water to our customers. The pipeline was constructed in the 1940s. It's a 20-inch diameter pipeline, and it had been undermined by a creek that was flowing along the pipeline. Essentially, the creek had found that it was easier to flow along where the backfill was, and it undermined the pipeline to the point that it was suspended for quite some distance. So what we did was we declared an emergency in order to stave off the potential for a uncontrolled release of that recycled water to the creek. After declaring the emergency, we hired a contractor, TK Construction, who essentially did the work to move the creek away from the pipeline, replace the pipeline to upgrade it since it was dated from the 1940s. While we were in there, we put in much more robust pipeline. And then we as I said before, completed the job. Now, the recommendation for this particular item is to amend the budget originally was passed at $900,000 when we declared the emergency. We didn't know what the final cost would be. We accumulated that throughout the project, and now we need to increase the budget by $320,000 due to all the work that was required while we're out there. So I do have a presentation. I'll go through it fairly quickly because I did go through this in committee, but just for the board and the members of the audience, this is the project that we did. Just a quick overview of what the plan was. As you can see, the creek essentially went along the pipeline, and we decided to move it to the north to flow along the pipeline. But when we moved it to the north, we put in gabions, which basically makes a resistant layer that will not allow the creek to go back below our pipeline. You can see here in the photo here, the pipeline is exposed, and it's not supposed to be up in the air like that. This is the temporary support that we put. This is the bypass pipeline. That's not the pipeline. In the lower part of this photo, you can see the existing pipeline, and then we put in a bypass pipeline so we could take it, remove the pipeline, and then replace it. On this one, you can see that the old pipeline has been removed. That's where that kind of little puddle is. And it's the bypass is carrying the water. Right here is the creek crossing. So that part where you see the pipe is the temporary pipe being supported is higher so that we can allow the creek to pass over the pipeline. So we made the pipe go downward, made it lower than where the creek could erode down to, beyond that level, and it allows the creek to pass over the pipeline. And again, we put gabions over that. In this, you can see the creek channel where we've moved it over to the north. And here you can see the fittings and valves for doing the diversion. This was to allow for the bypass and to connect the new pipe to the old pipe. And here you can see some of the pipe being fused together. It's high-density polyethylene. And essentially, you take pieces of the pipe, you heat them up, and you weld them together. And you can see here, there's the new pipe. It's covered in the kind of
Colors.
that purple covering there. So you can't quite see the pipe, but it's in. And we're past the completion date. And all of this stuff was pretty much in on December 8th, with the exception of doing the restoration of the area. We've replanted it. We put native seed over where the gabions are, so it should grow in, and you won't really be able to see that we're even there. That concludes my presentation. I open up to any questions.
Any questions from the board?
I just have a quick question. The gabions, I was thinking we had seen a picture of those. Are they they're like filled with rocks? They almost look like cages
That's right.
filled with rock. Okay, so here's my newbie stuff. I was out in Hemet yesterday in a adult community and went by one of the houses, and they have used those as their decorative fencing in their front yard. So they have them like in a row. It goes around the corner and across the front of their yard. And I was like, I think those are those gabion things. Thought it was pretty clever.
They might be, and what I'll do is, we have photos of the completed project, and I'll bring some photos in of the gabions when we come back to the board to close out the project at the
Okay.
next board meeting.
And then I
So you'll
can
be able to
see
them.
if that was the same thing that I saw or not. But I thought it was very clever.
Move to approve?
And I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, Tammy, would you please do a roll call vote?
Director Torres?
Yes.
Director Roden?
Yes.
Director Rizvi? President Gardner?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries 4-0.
Great. Thank you very much, Derek.
Thank you, directors.
Okay, brings us to reports. Mr. General Consul, have you anything?
This time I do. As you know, it's that time of year when BBK is going to be presenting our new laws documents, so we'll be printing those out for the board and bringing those to you over the next couple of meetings. In addition, I'm going to be out of town for parts of January, so Holland Stewart will be filling in for me at the board meetings in January. And other than that, I just wish you a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays.
Great, thank you. Mr. General Manager.
All right, I got a few things. First one, I want to thank the board members who attended the employee recognition event a couple weeks ago. It was a really nice event. Biggest one we've had yet. Really enjoyed time with the staff, and it's fun to get to reward our staff members for some of the great things that they've accomplished in the last year. So always one of my favorite events. Also did a presentation last week to the Monday Morning Group. Director Roten is on the Monday Morning Group. They are planning for their DC and Sacramento lobbying trips. And so they invite Western and Eastern to come in and give them a little bit of background and some suggestions on what our priorities would be for them to lobby for. So Joe Mawad and I did a presentation on state issues and federal issues. So we're very appreciative of the Monday Morning Group for kind of carrying the water for us, in addition to what we do on lobbying. So it's great to have a second voice representing Riverside County. Sarah and myself were at CRUA last week, along with Director Denstad. This is the Colorado River Water Users Association. It is the 7 basin states all have representatives there, and all of the tribes along the river. It's a big event. You walk into you think Aqua's a big event. The conference or the presentation room is probably 4 times the size of Aqua. You can't even see the presenters from the back seats. They're about this big. It's pretty impressive. Obviously, just like Aqua, the hallway conversations are extremely valuable because, not only do you have the majority of the Met member agency managers there, but board members, and then your opportunity to hear a lot more from the Bureau of Rec, and they're walking the hallways talking about future Colorado River programs. Adel Hodge Khalil uses the opportunity to have meetings. He's general manager at Metropolitan, so he called a GM roundtable meeting there. So we all the GMs got called to Las Vegas to meet for a couple hours on Thursday morning, which I really appreciate that he's doing this. As he says, he wants more advisors on future Met issues. And so he's really sharing a lot of his plans for things he's going to be bringing to the Met board over the next year, which then puts us as general managers in a good position so that we can work with our representatives to make sure they're aware and ready for those discussions when they hit the Met committee. And we're talking about huge issues. What's going to happen on the Colorado, what's going to happen on rates, what's going to happen on the State Water Project, Delta Conveyance. I mean, these are big picture water issues that I really appreciate that he's engaging all the general managers in those discussions with him. Last Friday, Mr. Hadley put on a little party with the Riverside County Water Task Force. So we did a tour of Diamond Valley Lake and then a presentation of kind of year in review presentation out at Eastern. So appreciate Eastern providing the facilities. Michael did a great job of herding all the cats to make that come off well. And I think it was very successful. I got a lot of compliments afterwards from the participants. So thank you, Michael. Thank you, Eastern. Thank you, Joe was there, and the other speakers that participated. Yesterday, I spent 4 hours up at Met at the camp Climate Adaptation Master Plan for Water meeting. This is our second meeting. I'm one of the general managers on the task force. There's 11 general managers and 8 Met board members, and we're talking about how to prepare a master plan for Metropolitan to deal with climate change in the future. So a lot going on, very difficult politics going on. With 26 member agencies, you have 26 different opinions of what this plan should be. So it is not, it's been going on since last February. I think that Metropolitan was struggling with making progress. So this task force is a new effort to try and make progress. So the general managers have been brought in and, get to work, guys, girls. And so it's really interesting. I think we are making progress. Our caucus, which is Orange County, IUA, Western, and Eastern, submitted significant comments on the process. I was very encouraged that many of those comments were incorporated into the new criteria that was presented yesterday at the caucus. And also really appreciative of all the other general managers in the caucus all stepping up at the meeting and voicing their support for what we really want to see happen. And I think we have to be kind of loud because we are a growing area. A lot of the other areas at Metropolitan are not growing areas. And so their perspective on future rates and future projects and the need for continuing to grow the water supply for Southern California is not the same perspective as ours.
Right.
So meeting in the middle somewhere with how we move this forward is a priority of Adon Ortega, the chair, and it's no easy task. And so kudos to him for taking this on, and kind of mean of him to lay this in our laps to be successful at it, but it takes a lot of work, and there's no way that the chairman could do this on his own, and so we're happy to help. Big effort though, and it's gonna go on. They say they want to have a final plan this year coming up, but some of these items that we're trying to resolve literally have been argued about for 20 or 30 years. So it's very ambitious that we're going to resolve it in 1 year after not making progress for decades. But we're taking it on, so it's good to be involved. That includes my comments, except to say happy holidays to everyone. I hope you enjoy the holidays with your families and the new year. And then the rest of my presentation will be handled by Ginger and Mallory. We've been asked to talk about our process with development. What's our role in the development process? So Ginger and Mallory are the two that do that for us. So I'm going to turn it over to them for their presentation. Mallory, are you kicking off?
I am.
All right.
Good morning, directors. As Craig mentioned, we're here today to present you with an overview of Western's role in the development process for a new project. And Ginger Hahn, the principal engineer for development services, and I are going to tag team this presentation based on our department's role in the process. So a quick overview of what we'll be discussing today. It really is a highlight that Western is a link in the sometimes very long chain of steps that are required for a development to get fully approved and under construction. And before we get into the steps of an individual project that they must take, we wanted to remind you that Western Water has its own planning process that includes several board-adopted documents, which include an urban water management plan, master plans, and build-out studies. So Water Resources oversees the development of the Urban Water Management Plan, headed up by Melissa Matlock here, and it's board-adopted every 5 years. It captures the population growth, and we partner with development services to include any near-term developments, and we tie together our facilities master plans, our build-out studies, and we look at drought impacts on the available supplies and increases to demand. The urban plan looks out 25 years into the future with planned supplies and demand for our wholesale and retail systems. And we use external data from cities, counties, SCAG, et cetera, to consider the population growth, development growth, climate change, and drought impacts. And so the findings from the most recent Urban Water Management Plan 2020 shows that Western can reliably meet its wholesale and retail demands with existing and future supply sources based on demand and supply projections under all the varying conditions that we're required to look at. And I will turn it over to Ginger for the next few slides.
Thank you, Mallory. Good morning, everyone. So the development process does not actually start at Western. It starts with the jurisdictional agency, so that's either the city or the county. So those terms may be used interchangeably. And it starts when the developer submits an application to the city or the county for a proposed development. Now, whether this development is a new commercial business or it's attractive homes, it enters what's called the entitlement process. And in this process, it focuses on the development's intended use, its aesthetic design, as well as overall adherence to the city or county plan. And it's important to note that this process may take several years for approval, likely depending on how impactful this development would be. So although this presentation discusses the entire process as a whole, it really is just a very general overview because it can be quite complicated. And really, we can only speak to Western's role within that process because development is approved or not approved at the city or county level. Western provides information along the way, and if approved, we help support the developer to obtain their water and sewer service needs. So as I said earlier, the city may grant entitlement, which is a legal right or permission to use land or property in a certain way. And in this process, the commission reviews various aspects related to how compatible it is with the regulations and standards, and businesses or new projects must meet the city's goals and fall within the requirements adopted by the city. And that's, for example, their general plan or their specific plans. A general plan is a long-term blueprint for city development, and specific plans are a more detailed guidance as to how to achieve the general plan. And these are typically specific to areas within the city. For instance, the city of Riverside adopted a specific plan just for their downtown area, and that covers the historic and cultural core. In addition, it goes through an internal review where the project is routed through various departments within the city, and they're all looking at it from various aspects as well. The fire department, they would impose the fire requirements such as the demands, the duration, and assess the need for additional fire hydrants. The transportation department, they may assess the project's impact on traffic flow and parking. Parks and Recs will look at it to see if it has enough open space or if it's aesthetically pleasing and compatible with the surrounding areas. And conservation, that department may want to ensure to, certain areas are protected from land development completely in order to protect wildlife habitat. So another important aspect of the process is the California Environmental Quality Act and the environmental impact reports. And these are important in that they help to ensure that land development projects are environmentally sustainable and socially responsible. A CEQA is a state law that requires agencies to disclose and evaluate projects and their effect on the environment, and they also help to prevent significant environmental damage. If there's substantial evidence that a project may have a significant effect on the environment, then typically EIRs are prepared. So if a project triggers environmental concern, the commission reviews its potential impact, and that can actually define the entire project. So in the entitlement process, conditions of approval are requirements that the development must meet, and it's imposed by the Planning Commission as well as other relevant agencies, and this includes Western. So listed are some of the key conditions. Site plan approval. A site plan is a graphic depiction of the existing conditions and the proposed improvements. It may include information such as the construction details, utility information, landscaping, etc. Zoning, that governs the development regulations for land parcels, traffic and transportation. These plans are reviewed to see how it impacts roads and access, and they have to ensure safe traffic flow. Landscape approvals, those are reviewed to enhance aesthetics, green spaces, environmental sustainability, and utilities. Compliance with utility regulations are crucial. A project must show they can properly connect to water, sewer, electricity, etc. And as you know, we are a purveyor of water and sewer service, and conditions of approval are required in order for them to connect to our system. And it varies depending on the location, the size, and the type of development it is. It also varies on capacities, availability of existing infrastructure. For instance, we may condition a project to extend a main line or to upsize an existing one. And it's important to note that these conditions expire a year after the date of issuance. So So in addition to conditions, the development process includes the issuance of will-serve letters. And these serve as formal communication as to how we understand a project, since very little information is typically provided at the outset during the pre-planning stage. And it's often required by lenders in order to finance a project. Now, Western issues letters for water and sewer service. However, it's important to note that we don't refer to them as will-serve letters. We refer to them as availability letters. And this is important because we do not guarantee service as the term will-serve implies. Rather, the availability letters indicate they are just within our retail service area. We also don't guarantee reservation of capacity. We inform the applicant that they may have additional requirements based on the demands of the project. They also must adhere to our rules, regulations, and standards. And they also must coordinate with the Fire Protection Agency of jurisdiction. So similar to conditions of approval, these expire a year after the date of issuance. And as you can see on the slide, in 2022, we issued 92 total letters. And in 2023, we issued 92 letters to date. So these letters are typically issued substantially ahead of the water supply assessment, to which Mallory will now speak to.
So as Ginger was mentioning, after a project makes its initial round through development services and is issued a water availability letter, if the project meets any part of a specific set of criteria, a document called a water supply assessment is required. And as part of CEQA, Western is required to provide an analysis of the current and projected supply compared to that project's estimated demands for any project meeting a certain threshold under Senate Bill 610, which was passed in 2001. And the supply and demand information that is in the Urban Water Management Plan is used to aid in the analysis. Water Resources is in charge of developing this document and works in close coordination with Development Services. It is reviewed by legal counsel for compliance with all requirements, and the WSA and a resolution are required to be adopted by the board within 90 days of the water supply assessment request by the CEQA lead agency. And so the thresholds differ based on the type of development. I have them listed here. You know, you'll see here that residential or hotel, the threshold is more than 500 units or rooms. But for a shopping center or a business center, more than 1,000 employees or 500,000 square feet of floor space. For a commercial office building, more than 1,000 employees, but more than 250,000 square feet of floor space. So a little different based on the type of building. And then industrial, manufacturing, processing plant, or industrial park, if there's more than 1,000 people on site, 40 acres of land, or 650,000 square feet of floor space. So a little bit different based on each type of building. Western has adopted 5 WSAs over the last 5 years. 4 of them have been industrial, commercial type properties and projects, warehouses, distribution centers. Probably the one you could see right outside our door is the Burlington Distribution Center right behind us. They went through a WSA, and we've had 1 multifamily residential property in the city of Murrieta last year. The majority of the projects, however, don't have a high water demand. They're meeting that criteria for the floor space, so we're required to do a water supply assessment based on that. And the CEQA lead agency for the project, which is usually the city or county where the project is located, must determine based on the WSA and all other required environmental documentation whether the project moves forward. So we're required to do the analysis and adopt the document that shows that analysis, and then we send it back to the city or county for them to make their final determinations. Thank you. Ginger?
So prior to the city or county's approval, the commission weighs in to see the project's benefits. They must be sustainable, responsible, and meet the actual needs of the community. Public hearings are held to consider the views of the applicant and the public, and its purpose is to take into consideration the concerns of the community, as it may have potential impacts on the environment, traffic, public services, or even the character of the neighborhood. And it may also be followed by an appeal process where the decision of the city or the county is challenged by either the applicant or any aggrieved person. And project approval is the final step in the entitlement process. Once the Planning Commission and other relevant agencies review the project's proposal and have conducted the necessary technical and environmental studies, and have held these public hearings, a decision is made as to whether to approve or to deny the project. If approved, an approval letter is issued, the plans are stamped by the Planning Division, building permits are issued, and the developers can start grading the site, and they now must meet the conditions of approval. And Western, our development services team, is informed by the developer, and we start project coordination. So after a project is approved by the city, our development services team works directly with the developer to help their project come to fruition. And our team plays a crucial role in assisting with various aspects related to potable, sewer, and reclaimed water projects. And listed are just a few various functions of our team. When developers submit plans, our team reviews them to ensure they're in compliance with standards and criteria. We provide technical guidance to the engineer and to the developer during this design and planning stage. And these plans are actually also reviewed by our operations team because they're the ones who are ultimately operating and maintaining the system. After approval of the plans, we assess the necessary fees and bonds, we receive the contractor information, and we issue what's called a notice to proceed, and that allows the developer to go ahead and start construction. Our inspection team also provides guidance to the contractor during construction to ensure that the installation is per the approved plan and in compliance with any state regulations. After installation, a notice of final inspection is issued prior to acceptance of the system. So in addition, our team also negotiates and monitors interagency agreements, and these agreements facilitate cooperation between various jurisdictional agencies. Recently, we executed an agreement with Eastern for our Cactus interconnection, and these agreements all require board approval. And lastly, but also important, are the board updates on projects. And Derek typically reports various development projects. Now, whether these projects are just large in scale, and he reports them just for information as to the phase of development they're in, or if they're sensitive in nature, and he reports them for awareness. It's important that we keep the board apprised of development as it pertains to Western and our existing and future customers. So with that, I'd like to say thank you for allowing Mallory and me to present today to inform you a bit about the development process.
Great. Thank you very much. Any questions or comments from board members?
I have just a few questions, and thank you so much for doing this. I think it's important for the public to understand our role as an agency. One of the things, just flat out, very clear, why can we not approve or deny projects?
Well, our role, like I said, is actually small compared to the actual process itself, and lots of various aspects are reviewed, and we're really only just the water and sewer part of it, where they take into consideration everything, the traffic, character of the neighborhood, and it's pretty much why we are not the ones who to dictate whether a development can be built or it can. So that's basically why we don't say yes or no, but we just we provide the information as needed, and typically, if it is within the area, within our service area, we can provide the service, but we are not the ones to say, no.
Jeff, let me help out. Maybe, Jeff, you want to talk about our overarching authority?
It's a matter of state law. State law vests the authority to approve or disapprove or condition projects in either cities or counties. Other districts, water districts, school districts, as their name implies, provide those services, but it's the city or county that approves projects.
So we don't have land use jurisdiction, we don't have any type
No.
of land use authority?
Correct.
Right, okay. Thank you. And then, just to a clarifying question, who sets the water availability assessment thresholds?
The water supply assessment?
Yeah, water supply, sorry.
The thresholds were outlined in Senate Bill 610. So
Okay.
those, yeah.
So the state, so we don't decide if it's 2 apartments or 1,000 apartments. The state tells us, right?
Correct.
Okay, and then just for my own So, I work for a special district, and we see these developments come through all the time. And where I work, it's drainage, right? Do you meet the drainage, do you have the drainage plans and it's called a SWIP, right? Stormwater, PPP. I don't remember the rest of it. But ultimately, it falls on the developer to meet our development needs, right? So if you need water, then you're going to need to find a way to make sure the pipe goes through. And the same with the special district I work for. You need to meet these drainage, right? If the developer does that, right, then they've completed that SWIP, that permission to develop. And it's the same thing with water. You see the same thing with fish and wildlife. As if you do these certain things to make sure that the Santa Ana sucker doesn't die, then you can develop, right? And so I just want it to be very clear that we do what we are assigned to do, which is serve water, and we play no role in deciding whether a development happens. And I mean, we also live in part of communities. We also see these different developments come through that we may or may not like. But ultimately, as this board and this agency was founded, and the rules that apply to us, we just don't have the authority to not abide by Senate Bill 610 or all these other things that are placed with us. And so I really appreciate this presentation. I think I'm going to blast it just because I get this question very, very often, right? Why are you giving this apartment complex or all these homes water when you're telling me to conserve? And the answer is because when we assessed the supply, it was there, right? So thank you for your time. Thank you, Craig, for making this happen. I really think it's important. So thank you.
Other questions or comments? Director Rizzo.
Question, maybe Greg can answer. Are there any circumstances a project is not approved because of water assessment?
Well, I guess ultimately, this board could make a determination when Mallory brings a water supply assessment to the board for approval. And like she said, we've only done this 5 times, so they're infrequent. Okay. But I think the last one that we approved, I think a couple of board members, because it was during the drought, and a couple of the board members, kind of stood up and said, well, wait a minute, we're in a drought. Should we be doing this? Okay. And so this board does have the authority to not approve the water supply assessment. But it's presented with a very robust analysis of our long-term water supplies in mind. But our board cannot approve that, then we would send that back to the city or the county. That would get incorporated into the environmental document that the county or the city would be approving. And so they would have to take that into consideration and do whatever they're going to do. Now, how a city or a county would handle the water district not approving a water supply assessment and what they ultimately do with that project, that's them. Yeah.
So can we get in trouble with the state for not approving?
No, I think we follow the state guidelines. And we would get in trouble if we didn't follow the state guidelines. We'd open ourselves up to a challenge from someone else. And it would likely be an environmental group or something else if we don't follow all the guidelines. So we're very matter of fact in here are the guidelines, here's what we're required to present. And where Mallory's expertise and where staff has to put a lot of thought into this is they ask you, are you going to have water supply available for the next 20 years? Mm-hmm. And so that's where we have to be very thoughtful because we can't oversell our system.
Right.
And so we have to make sure that we're always planning ahead. And, when the board says, hey, we're in this for the long haul, that's what we're talking about. Is we're planning water resources for those projects that are looking 20 or 30 years out, and that's what Mallory does. And we have a very detailed table in the water supply assessments where we are getting all the water. Here's what this project will do. Here's where we have a bucket or a portfolio of water that we've planned for development to take, and here's their share that they're going to take. So I think our process is really strong. We've never been challenged. and I'm very comfortable, and Mr. Ballinger's here to make sure that we follow all the rules. So I think we're in a very good position.
In listening to this conversation, I just
Her
want to
notes
make
are,
sure.
her notes are crazy.
I'm understanding. They're not all on this, though.
Oh, okay. She learned a lot.
So what is it, water supply availability? Okay, so that's only when you hit those thresholds that you all mentioned, and I understand that, we've only done 5. But then everything else falls under the water and sewer availability letters. But am I understanding correctly that availability means the system is there for them to connect to?
It means that if they abide by the terms that are put in that letter, the system would be available to them.
Okay.
So it depends on where they are, and Mallory already and Ginger both talked about this. It depends on where they are in the system. Some areas have a more robust system that they can connect into. So the engineering team and Derek they'll do a very, very detailed, long-range evaluation of, do we have enough storage capacity? So a developer may have to contribute through connection fees to building more storage capacity. It might be pipelines. They might dedicate all the pipelines within their development area for larger developments as part of the conditions for water system availability. So every development can have different terms and conditions, but our perspective is that it's all going into the long-term viability of our water system. And so when we say development pays their way, that's what we're talking about, is existing customers cannot pay for growth of the system, because when they became a customer, they paid their way. And so they paid for their little portion of the future of Western Water. And so everyone has to pay their way, because it can't be burdened by existing customers. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. But then, those new folks that come in, we're not necessarily looking at like the amount of gallons or whatever acre feet that we have for them. We're more looking at the infrastructure that is or isn't in place in order for them to connect to it.
Yeah, we do both. So there's an analysis of like the big picture water perspective. You know, we expect this much water to be available from Metropolitan. We expect this much water to be available from our interconnections with other agencies, from our groundwater wells, from our desalters. So that's the big picture that says, yes, we think there's water supply available.
Okay.
But then we do the detail hydraulics analysis and says, well, can we move water to you under all existing conditions, which generally is determined by fire flow, because it's a higher capacity. So we have to make sure pipes and pumps and reservoirs are able to meet fire demands for any new infrastructure. And that new development can't lessen our ability to meet fire flows for existing customers. So they have to buy into capacity so that everyone has the same level of protection, and we have to meet those standards which are actually determined by the fire authorities. So that's a separate entity that we have to make sure we can accommodate.
Do all of those details go into that letter that goes to who's ever requesting it?
Yeah, that's,
Or is it just a
no,
general
we,
letter?
we,
wanted to say something,
we-
yeah.
well, we're not going to give them a letter that's 42 pages long of all of our details, so we summarize it.
Yes. Derek Hoy here. Yeah, so as far as the letters that we send out, in some cases, if it's very complex at the edge of our system, then we would give it a lot more attention, and we might have to do some hydraulic analysis and say, we probably have to put in a pipe that's bigger than the existing pipe. In other cases, like Craig was saying, we have a robust area of the system. We know the pipe's right in front of where they're going to connect. We just say, okay, yeah, you can connect, because we don't think there's going to be any additional hardware required.
Okay.
These are more subtleties. I'm kind of burying in the details here. But in an area where there's already a big pipeline maybe, and they can connect, they would pay connection fees so that we get money to invest in water infrastructure to accommodate that that development. There's other developments in newer areas where the infrastructure is not there. So instead of us collecting the cash to invest in the future, they contribute a whole bunch of pipelines.
Right.
And so that's, Derek does the evaluation, what's equivalent here? And that would be their financial contributions to the system. So it can be a lot of different things.
Okay, I guess where I'm going with it is, I've seen on, just take Harupa Community Services District, because that happens to be where I get my water. On their agenda, you know, it'll have the agenda item and it'll say water and sewer availability letter for track number, blah, 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 blah. And of course, that's just the item on the agenda. I don't know that I've ever gone to, you know, click on the agenda item and see how much detail is there. And I know as the public, when they see that, that's usually all they see, because, you know, maybe they don't even know to click on the item and get more information. So all they see in the public is, oh God, they're giving more water, they're building, and you know, we're in a drought and all that kind of stuff. So I'm just trying to get clarification, so when I'm asked about it, I can, you know, refer them to looking more in depth at the item on the report, as well as sharing with them our role and responsibility in that, or JCSD's role.
I think there's a couple different tools that the public, most members of the public would have a hard time piecing it together, but as a board member, you know, what we do is not only would you see a water supply assessment if it qualified. A lot of developments don't qualify for that, so this is kind of under the radar from the public. But the other thing that we do is we have to do an urban water management plan, and we do our long-term water supply planning, and so that all gets presented to the board. So in those documents, we have to accommodate not just for the developments that are in front of us, but we have to look at the long-term regional planning for vacant land. And so we do all this knowing that it's zoned like, well, actually, that's very interesting back there, but there's normally a zone and a plan, so we can look at, you know, it's an industrial zone. We know we have to set aside water for a typical industry, and so that's all in our urban water management plan. There's other one-offs like Burlington behind us, where that was supposed to be
Habitat.
It's supposed to be habitat. It's supposed to be restricted from development. That developer went and got permission to build there, not our decision. We had nothing to do with that. All of a sudden, they knock on Derek's door and they go, oh, hey, we're going to put a building back here. And we were actually in a position where we had to say, that is not in our master plan, long-term master plan, because it was always supposed to be environmental habitat. And so that developer got conditioned to actually build their own infrastructure to the Worth plant, because it was not in our master plan. We had not been collecting connection fees to pay for that. And so that was one of their conditions of approval.
Interesting. Wow. I feel like the more I'm hearing, the more complicated it gets. But,
Go ahead, Derek.
Many layers to the onion.
yeah.
So one other thing I just wanted to give a caution is that we see a lot of developments and a lot of dreams come to us, and they'll say, hey, I'm planning on doing this thing. And we're like, well, what's the thing? And they don't have much detail. And that's the point where they're asking for a water availability letter. Says, I like to build some stuff, and we don't have all the details. And so sometimes if you click on that, as you were saying, you see the details, it'll say, well, you're in our district, and you will have to abide by all of our rules, and we'll have to do some analysis once you tell us what you're building. So sometimes we have to send out the letter, and we don't know much about it other than it's this parcel.
Yeah.
Because it's very early in the process.
Yeah.
But by the end, we have drawings, and we sign off on those drawings, and that's when we say, okay, you can build. And that's when you have the most detail, is just before they're about to build.
So it can be very difficult, and it can be political, because, you know, think of a developer that is considering acquiring a 10-acre parcel to build something on. And one of the first things when they're doing their due diligence is, what's the zoning? Where's the electricity? Where's the sewer? Where's the water? Right. So they'll come in and meet with Derek and ask all those questions, and then they'll usually ask a question at the end, well, can we connect? And that's where we get put in a very difficult position. It's like, well, yeah, if you meet all these conditions, then we would consider that. And so, there's all these different steps as you go through the process. And then there's redevelopment that happens. So existing condition and then something, a developer comes in and acquires it, wants to rebuild it to something else, then we have to go through that new process of, can we meet that? And it may be a change in infrastructure to accommodate that.
Okay, wow. Thank you for that level of detail. I think it's helpful. I hope.
Well, I think knowledge is
straight.
helpful.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's really helpful that we have 3 really good, smart people that can go through all this so we don't have to do it as a board.
Yeah.
And, they're just very technically skilled and it's very complicated.
I'd like to note that while the state has different thresholds, the county and cities can change those thresholds if they felt like it. And so again, the state and their cities and counties are able to say you need to have a water supply assessment for 200, but if they don't do that, we're held to,
State standard.
it's the state. And so it's worthy to know that there is just a lot that it's not incumbent upon us, and we just follow the rules essentially.
And it's just not within our scope.
It's not within our scope, yeah. And so, like I said before, I think it is important for the public to understand that. We're just doing what we're here for, what we're here to do.
Other questions and comments? Thank you all. I mean, this was an important presentation. It was given at committee, but little public attends committee meetings, so this is an opportunity for more of the public to see it, and because we do archive this, people can go back to it and see the presentation. So thank you all very much. It was excellent, and I think
Really
it's helpful. It's a lot to try to digest if you don't know any of it, and most customers don't, but it's very helpful to the board, so thank you very much. Okay, did you have anything else, Mr. General Manager? Okay.
That's good.
Brings us then to directors' reports and requests. SAPA met yesterday, took a couple of actions. One of great importance to SAPA is they had a presentation of their annual audit, which was an unqualified opinion, which of course is what everybody would like to have, so that was good news. And they voted to reject the one bid that came in for the landscape refreshment project on the SAPA grounds. For those who've been there, there's sort of a demonstration garden area out front, and then there's assorted plantings around other areas around the building. The irrigation system is quite old, and much of the vegetation has changed, and they have water where there's nothing that demands water, and they have things that demand water where there isn't any water. So they just need to upgrade all of that, and they want to go back and kind of refresh their demonstration garden and make it more, it's kind of overgrown and not well-maintained, and some of the plants are too old, so they're going through all that. But the bid that came in was significantly more than the engineer's estimate for the cost. There was one other entity that submitted a bid, but they submitted it outside the time frame for accepting bids. So the hope is that we'll get more people bidding and get that project done. The goal is to issue a contract end of January next year. So. And that was it for SAPA, MWD. Anything real significant that you want to cover, Craig, that you didn't already? Director Denstead, of course, is not here.
No, Director Denstead maybe can report next board meeting
Sure.
when she's here.
And will have met again by then, I believe. So Chino Basin Water Master has not met since my last presentation. It's possible they will have a special meeting this Friday to discuss details of the process for recruiting a new general manager. They're looking to see if they can get a quorum of board members for Friday. But other than that, it will be the normal meetings next month, next year. CDA? RICRA?
Yes, RICRA met last week. We had a good meeting. One agenda item was to authorize an agreement for Hurupa Valley Community Services District to use temporary yard space at the RICRA treatment plant site. So that was approved. We had some operations update, capital improvement project. The anaerobic digester 3 the project will be completed January 2024, so we're almost there. And we had an update about the recycled water program. And then we had 2 items at the closed session with no actions required to do. So
Okay.
that was my meeting.
Director Denstead is WRCOG, so we'll pass that one. Sarah?
So we had a meeting as well, yes. We had 2 meetings this week. Just 2 main items. There was, Sarah received a recognition award from Aqua JPIA for the liability, property, and workers' comp program, so we accepted that. And then we approved and accepted the Santa Rosa, Sarah's final annual audit report for the financial statement. They have received an unmodified or clean opinion from their audit firm. Okay, and then we had update on the waste monitoring flows, and some update on the capital projects. So, other than that, that was it. We will meet in January for both RICRA and SORA.
Great. Again, Director Denstead is not here to report on Aqua. Director's comments. Let's see. We'll start with Director Torres this time.
Thank you, President Gardner. He just walked out, but we did meet earlier this week. Tim and the finance team and engineering team met with Mr. Farnsworth. He had a lot of questions, as well as the Mission Grove neighborhood group. And they had a lot of questions, including this one. I want to just take the time to thank staff for, going back and forth with Mr. Farnsworth. And I know he had a lot of requests and questions. We have a pending meeting to finish off answering those questions. But sat there very proud, mostly from watching the interactions of a lot of light bulbs lighting up, and they're like, oh, you're not at fault for everything, or, and I always say, light is a disinfectant, and I think even though we know the answers, or we might think that it's a simple concept, not everyone does. Especially in a topic like water and those things like that. And so just thank you very much for taking the time. We face the public quite often, and you're all the experts. So I like I said, I sat there in pride just seeing these light bulbs turn on, and thank you for your time to do that. It means a lot to me and to that community especially. I just wanted to announce, I think I mentioned it before, we're doing our second annual Tour of Toys. I partner with a couple nonprofits and groups, cities, to do this. We'll be doing San Bernardino County's tomorrow. I won't be there, but Riverside County is on Friday. We'll be in Paris, Moreno Valley, Hurupa Valley, and 2 sites in Riverside. If you're interested in being there, please come through. We have over 5,000 toys to give away throughout the Inland Empire, and the kids love it. Hoop bus, which is basically a bus that has a basketball hoop at the end. The kids get to play with it. They get to play with basketball influencers, and it's just a good time. An hour each stop, but just really good time. And I'm happy that we're able to do that again this year. I was able to attend the Riverside's 19th annual Hanukkah celebration, which was just beautiful. The lighting is beautiful. Being able to sit near the menorah and watch it be lit is amazing. I'm a bit of a pyromaniac, so it's just great. It's like, it's exciting. That's the chemist in me. But I want to wish the staff, first and foremost, a very happy holiday and new year. You've worked very hard this year, done some great things. Thank you for everything. Sorry, I couldn't make the appreciation event, but we do appreciate you. I appreciate all the work you've done. It's very, I mean, it's huge. And then I want to wish my colleagues a happy new year happy holidays and New Year's. I hope that you enjoy your families. It's been a rough year for some of us, and and so I hope that next year is better, and we're able to you're able to enjoy it a little more, or just the same, whichever. But yeah, happy holidays.
Thank you. Director Roden.
Okay, yes, it's been a busy couple of weeks, and as Craig can attest to by his report, and he touched on a couple of things which I will just mention very briefly. Craig, thank you, and Joe Mawad for coming to the Monday morning group. I think I sent you a little text that the presentation that was given, and thank you, Michael, for being involved in that, was held up as an example for our other speakers that will be coming as to like format and detail, and it was very user-friendly for us and very straightforward to the point. It was really good. So I appreciate you both being there. And then I did attend on December 7th, Pearl Harbor Day, the event in Norco that they do every year. I highly recommend that you put that on your calendar. I believe they always do it on the 7th, no matter what day of the week it falls on. And it is so moving and poignant. And my husband described it like this: this is wonderful and horrible all at the same time. And the lady in front of us turned around like she knew exactly what he was saying as he's wiping his tears. It's just incredible. So December 7th, Norco. My husband and I were able to attend the Hanukkah Festival downtown, and that was our first year going to that, and really enjoyed it. It's very different from anything I've attended, and I was very happy to be there and in support of Israel and all the things going on, and just the people, and seeing the kids and adults all having fun and eating the chicken soup and all that good stuff. So I was invited to attend Rubidoux Community Services District's holiday potluck luncheon, which was a special treat, and very much enjoyed that. And it was very cozy in their building. I know they're trying to move into their new facilities next year, but they have just a really, you could just feel a good camaraderie and good energy there. So I enjoyed being able to attend that. I did attend Women in Water on the 14th. Nate Sassman gave us sort of a very abbreviated pep talk, leadership, call the leadership kind of a thing. It was held here. Thank you to Western for hosting that and offering our location. So that was very enjoyable. And our president was also there, which I was impressed that he was attending, gave a nice welcome, and stayed through the whole thing. And on the 15th, I was able to go on the Diamond Valley tour, had never been there, took lots of pictures. It was like a picture-perfect day. It wasn't too hot, it wasn't too cold, and then lots of great information, and then the follow-up luncheon and review. A really good report from Metropolitan Water. Was that Jolene? Was that
No,
her
Nusha.
name? Nusha.
Nusha.
Okay.
Rosavian.
Where did I get Jolene?
She did great.
She did a really, really good job. So, and I think that rounded it out. And I do want to wish everyone, staff, board, everyone here, online, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. I hope everyone has a safe and just take time to be with your friends and your family. And thankfully, things slow down a little bit at this time of year, so hopefully you can enjoy those around you. And even if you have those around you that you don't enjoy quite as much, try to do that anyway. So that's it.
Great. Director Isby.
Alrighty. So I did attend the the Valley Lake event. Thank you, Michael, for putting putting it together, sending us notes of where the directions was, where we were meeting. Everything was everything was great. I had never been there, so that was my first time, and it's beautiful. I had no idea there were three dams. There were dams and all that information. That was quite eye-opening. It was great. Thank you. And then the year in review presentation. Greg, you and Joe, you guys all did a great job. So that was great. Thank you. Keep up the good work and keep on bringing those tours. They are really helpful for us to really see what's there. And then I did attend the Hanukkah celebration in Riverside. It's always a great event, and I'm just happy to join and celebrate and learn about their culture and to be there. So, and then I attended Good Morning Riverside last week. That was really good. The presentations were really good, and then they were talking about, I think, the mayor's reception is going to be in January, and she said that the mayor's state of the city, and then she said that we will be invited there, so we would love to attend there. With that, have great holidays. Thank you to staff for the whole year's work of work you've done. You've done an incredible job. We are really thankful for you, and happy holidays and a happy new year to everyone here. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Just a few things real quickly. We had really significant movement on two large water infrastructure projects at the state level. The final environmental report at the state and federal level for Sites Reservoir Project was approved. That opens the way for issuance of water rights permits and acquiring of the land and construction permits. It's a big deal for California. California's not done anything like that in over half a century. So that's has 1.8 million acre feet capacity when it's completed, and that will be a big help really all around. It's designed to be able to serve urban uses, agricultural uses, and environmental uses. So everybody can get some benefit out of it. The other significant one is the Delta Conveyance Project, the tunnel under the Delta. That final environmental impact report has been released and is out for comment. So that's a significant move to get that piece done. And we'll see what comes back. The governor is very much in favor of both of these projects. The legislature may be a little less so, particularly for Delta Conveyance. There are concerns about that project. There are rumbles that there may be bills that would delay it or make it more difficult, and we'll see what happens. But I attended the Riverside County Water Task Force tour of Diamond Valley Lake as well, and it was really very good. I also attended the Women in Water meeting held here, and the really interesting thing about that one was lots and lots of water districts, water people were represented. The Monte Vista Water District was here. They're a little bitty water district, 18 employees, and Monte Vista employees won all 3 of the raffle drawings. So figure that one. And it's my fault because I pulled the cards out, but I didn't look. And then, like everyone else, I would like to wish everybody happiest of holidays. People talk about the holidays, but you don't really think about what they are. We've already celebrated Diwali and Hanukkah. We have Christmas and Kwanzaa coming. This year, there's not a big Muslim holiday in December, but some years there are. And you say Happy New Year, and the world operates on different calendars. You know, New Year's Day is not the same everywhere, and we have people who recognize, as an example, Chinese New Year, which is a different date than our New Year. So Happy New Year, happy holidays for whatever it is you celebrate at your house. And at my house, it's Christmas, and I intend to have a good one. So thank you all. Especially thank you to our staff, all the hard work you do. Do we have any requests for future agenda items? Okay, we have some information items in the packet. If you have questions, see staff. Our next meeting is next year on January 3rd at 9:30. And with that, we will be adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Recording stopped.